The two women. Two women will be grinding together. The one will be taken and the other left. Luke 17:35, New King James Version. Two women will be grinding together. So they will be at the flour mill. One will be taken and the other left. These are allegorical sentences. That is, the higher life. The divine life can only be understood through symbols. It is absolutely incapable of being described, of being explained in words. I told you another time that the only real thing in this world is life. That is, conscious life. Life in which there is thought. Life that is accompanied by feelings. Life in which there are noble deeds. The earth is full of different kinds of life. The wolf has his own life. The fish, the bugs, the birds, the butterflies have their own life. The plants have their own life. And so on. They all have their own life. They all have the desire to preserve this life. But it's interesting. When you start talking to modern people about divine life, they think that there is no content, no meaning in this divine life. And they always say this, "Hey, I'm not going to live a monk's life." And they think the monk's life is divine. Absolutely not. The monk's life is the lowest life. If our monks had to represent the divine life, it would be a mockery. And we often say, "I'm not going to live a monk's life. I'm going to live a little just as people live in the world." Well, how do people live in the world? Now, I'm not going to describe it, but you know how people live in the world. And even you know for yourselves how you live. I don't have to tell you this, but I'll be like that Greek priest who asked his listeners, "Do you know what I'm going to tell you?" "We know." "Since you know, there's no reason for me to tell you." "Wait, we don't know." "Well, since you don't know, there's nothing for me to talk about." He's twisting the truth. In some respects, this priest was right. When a person is unable to understand the truth, there is nothing to tell him. And if he knows and understands this truth, there is no need for us to stop and tell him. Christ says, "Two women will be grinding together. The one will be taken and the other left." When will this happen? When the Son of Man comes. Well, if you have two daughters and a handsome man comes as a bridegroom and visits your house, which one will he take? The nicest one, the most slender one, the healthiest one, and not the sickly one. But both daughters grind all day for their mother. They grind this and that with their mouths. The mouth chews while the stomach grinds. Christ says, "Out of those healthy women whose stomachs grind, one of them is taken, while the other one remains." Which one of them is taken? And why? Because she is suitable. That handsome man likes her. Now religious people ask, why should one be liked while the other one remains? I say, one of them is undeveloped, while the other one is developed. She is engaged. They marry her off and she leaves her mother's house. This clarifies a great truth, that a person simultaneously has two lives within, the two women. The woman is an emblem, a symbol of both the material and the spiritual, of the divine at the same time. So one divine life passes from one state to another, and the other life remains in the same state. In mathematics, when you multiply a number by 1, it doesn't change. The number 1 neither decreases it or increases it. Consequently, the divine principle neither decreases things nor does it increase them. It presents them as they are. So, by multiplying 2 times 1 equals 2. By multiplying 3 times 1, it equals 3. However, by multiplying 2 times 2, it equals 4. So when you multiply these two women by 2, you get 4. Why do we have 4? This is the only number that can both be multiplied by 2 and added to 2. And it results in the same number, 4. 2 times 2 equals 4, and 2 plus 2 equals 4. So, even if you multiply 2 times 2 and add 2 to 2, you still get 4. Now, we modern day people find ourselves on Earth. All of you who are listening to me have, as I also do, our own tasks. We have our own individual, social, national, and common human understandings. We have our own inner understandings, and all of us, according to the degree of our development, understand things this way. Now the old, after having lived a spiritual life, say to the young, "You don't need a spiritual life. You don't need religion. When you grow old like us, then you can become pious." And it's strange how people preach a pious life to those who are sickly, who are growing old. Even the Lord doesn't need sickly people. If you waste your life in your youth on one thing after another, and then when you grow old and go to God and say, "Lord, I'm coming to dedicate my life to you," He will ask you, "Well, what do you have?" There's no philosophy here at all. Religion is for young, smart people. It's not for old people. The old don't need any religion, only cemeteries. But the young need religion. But not the religion that people understand and then say that religion makes one stupid. This is a misconception. The word religion, as people understand it, is really making them stupid. The spiritual life and religion, when properly understood, enrich people. People make the following objection to me, saying, "We don't need religion." Then the animals are the happiest. They are without religion. If religion implies a spiritual culture, then the animals, having no priests, no liturgical garments, no phylons, no crowns, should be the happiest. But the fact is that they are not. Indeed, if they were free, they would not serve us, but would be our masters. Now out of these 2 women, one is taken and the other is left. Whichever one is taken, she does the work. That which is left behind, that which is a surplus in you, is useless. It's meant to be used in the future. It's the only life in you that you can apply now to understand the inner meaning. The inner meaning of life brings an understanding of those pleasant feelings we experience every day. The pleasant feeling is not life, and the unpleasant feeling is not a sign of a lack of life, because there are many hallucinations in life. In a dream, you are being shaken, chased, and worried, and you wake up the next day and say, "Thank God it was a dream." Consequently, in your dream, you worry about things that bear no semblance to reality. I ask, how many of those disturbances that you experience are real? The only real things are those that do not change. If a suffering leaves a deep impression on you, and you remember it even after you die, the suffering is real. But if you forget your suffering after you wake up, we say that that is imagination. There is nothing real in it. Now we must understand the spiritual religious life from the point of view of our present life, not our past life, nor our future life, but from the point of view of the present, the real one that we have. And this is where religion is mistaken when it says that we will live such a spiritual life someday in the future. The future only refers to the conditions that will be given in the coming time. When we speak of the past, we again mean conditions, but life is actually expressed in the present. Consequently, we must observe what our convictions will be, our beliefs. Are we free from our beliefs? We read a certain book. We get infected by some ideas. We get infected by certain traditions and knowledge from the past. Someone says, "I believe." Yes, but this belief is not yours. You read something and have adopted it. Some clairvoyants say they went up there, that they saw this and that, and you believe them. They may have seen, but have you seen? Consequently, you need to remove 25% of what they might have seen, 25% of what they believe, and only 25% will remain true. Never take something at 100%. Well, good. If some clairvoyant descended into the lower world and tells you about what he saw there over the course of a certain time, is that really so? What is the lower world? There are other people living in the center of the earth who have a culture like yours. This is a legend. I am not speaking as one who descended there. This is what the legend says, namely, that in the land beneath, approximately 2,000 meters down from here, is where these people live. You will say, they're very close. No, they're a little farther away. If we increase the number of meters to 1,000 meters, then 2,000 kilometers from here, another culture begins underneath the earth. Now, if some clairvoyant from this culture came to Earth during the winter from the North Pole and returned, how would he describe our world? He would say that on Earth there are eternal snows, storms, blizzards, and people are not visible from the snow. Then the people from the subterranean life would describe the above-ground life in such a way as to show people covered with snow. However, 5 to 6 months later, another clairvoyant from the subterranean life comes to Earth and says, "This world is excellent. There are birds, flowers, trees. There is no snow." The two clairvoyants begin to argue. One of them says he saw snow, while the other one says he didn't see snow. Are they both right? Yes, but they have seen the world in two different settings. Consequently, when someone ascends into the angelic world, he will also see changes there. There are also snows over there. You will say, "We're running away from snow, but there's snow there too." This is a symbol. You will find snow there, just as there are nice flowers. If under your present conditions, under your present development, they were to place you in this kind of spiritual life, you would be the most unhappy people in the world. Don't create any illusions for yourselves by thinking you'll be happy in this world. I will confirm this. There are certain fish that live at the bottom of the sea under strong pressure. If we bring them to the top of the sea, where the pressure is weaker, they will burst. Their form will be destroyed. I ask, what good will it do if you take this beautiful fish out into this nice world if it eventually dies? Consequently, some people are preparing for the spiritual world, saying that once they go there, they'll be well off. No, this is a false teaching. You have to prepare for that world. You have to study its forms. You have to use them. If you enter into this world unprepared, you will be unhappy. And those who are preparing for religious life should study the laws of religion. Religion also has its own laws. There are many delicate feelings in this religious world. If you imagine a religious young woman who has the nicest feelings for some worldly young man, and you experience her feelings, the sufferings will be 10 times worse than those of the young man, because religious feelings have many vibrations. You don't understand the law. Where joy increases, sorrow also increases, and vice versa. Where sorrow increases, joy also increases. Where wealth increases, poverty increases, and vice versa. Where poverty increases, wealth increases. The same law applies to the feelings and the mind. If your feelings do not increase, your mind cannot increase. If your mind does not increase, your feelings cannot increase. If a certain change doesn't take place in your heart, a corresponding change can't take place in the mental world either. Sometimes the heart functions in the minor key, and the mind in the major key, and sometimes vice versa. The mind in the minor key and the heart in the major key. And now, all religious people function in the minor key. All religious people look at the world very dimly. Why? Because some of these religious people have lost their wives, others have lost their property, their belongings, and they say, "The world is a bad place." This is true for them. Their lives are not in harmony. However, if we take their experience, we will go to an extreme. Other societies say that life is excellent. That is another extreme. I don't consider this life too happy, but I also don't consider it too unhappy. I ask, if this young man who is in love comes to take your daughter, will you be happy? If he comes to live with you, to multiply, you will rejoice. But he leaves aside the sickly daughter and takes the other one. The mother says, "Our Maria is gone, but the one who is unfit remains." She says this to herself, but when they come to ask for her, she says the sickly one is very fit. Some mothers have this psychology, to praise their daughters, and some, on the contrary, to reproach them. Sometimes, when the young man comes asking for the young woman, the mother berates her. Sometimes this is very good. The girl's reputation rises before the young man. He says, "Your mother doesn't like you, but I like you." These are political considerations, in which there are contractual parties trying to win something. Because in the world, you do everything with a bill and an account. And when you go to God, you still have a bill. If you go to school to learn, you have a bill. If you go to God, you have a bill. If you study occult science, again, you have a bill. Someone says, "I'm a very honest and just man." I say the truth, you have a bill to pay. "I am," he says, "a very devout man." What should we understand by the word devotion? The world constantly suffers because of devout people. There is a distorted understanding of this devotion in the world. I call a devout person one who has God's qualities and properties, who also has his mind, his soul, and his heart. But the person who is only a shadow of God, who only represents God's power in himself, he is not a devout person. He is a man after power. Christ turns his attention to his listeners and says, "Remember Lot's wife. Why did she remain? Because she turned back to see Sodom and Gomorrah." In another place, Christ says, "No one, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God." And then I say, the seed that is sown in the field has the conditions to multiply, whereas the seed that remains in the barn is sold and is passed over by the millstone. Whichever seed is taken, it goes to the field to be sown. That's where it can grow. But whichever seed remains goes under the bread and is devoid of growth. Consequently, when some people say, "We're not among those who are going to be taken, are we?" I say, "Then you'll remain under the bread." Don't make any exceptions. There are no exceptions in nature. Either in the field or under the bread. Either to God or to Mammon. By God, I understand the sublime and noble in the world. It's not just a name with which we can baptize ourselves. I'm referring to that life we can live and experience. Religion is a science that can put spiritual science to a purely scientific experiment. In order to carry out this experiment, you must have a very cool composure. You must have the coolness of the Englishman, of whom I will tell you a story involving a Russian prince. They met in a street with their little cabriolets, but they stopped because they couldn't pass each other. The Russian pulls out the Times newspaper and starts reading it. The Englishman sends his servant to the Russian, and the servant says, "Sir, next time you read the newspaper, Let me take it to my master and let him read it. These two people aren't worried that they got into a jam. They're trying to solve serious issues. Well, next time, when you get together with a duke and a prince, you'll start to groan and cry. But it is a privilege to associate with a duke. He will want your newspaper. You must have such coolness when you study the occult sciences. This is not a science for sick people, for nervous people, for eccentric people. This is a science for people with healthy minds and hearts, for people who have the patience to read the Times. And do you know how big this newspaper is? 16 pages. It will take you half a day to read it with all the details. Now we're here on Earth, on one of these streets, and we're in a traffic jam. I ask, where will you go from here now? All of you, men and women, have reached one place. You all stopped and gathered there, and you say, there's nothing we can do. You got married, you're having conversations, you're fighting. Every day you read the Times. One day the man reads the Times. Then the woman says, give it to me afterwards. The man explains, this is what it says in the Times. The woman says, you didn't see well enough, there's something missing. And sometimes they argue about who read the newspaper correctly. But this stems from an incorrect understanding about which kind of life predominates within us. If the life of the woman predominates in us, within our spirit, then we are candidates for the new culture that is coming. Or as they say, we are candidates for the kingdom of God. And Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And in Greek, the word zeo, which is where the word jana, woman, stems from. In Sanskrit, the word jive means jivot, life. Consequently, the woman is the object of study for the man. This is why it is said, she is a bone from his flesh. So the woman, the life within us, must be studied by us who have to use it, because this same life flows within us. Do not think the woman has one life, while the man has a different one. Put the man in the same circumstances in which the woman finds herself, and he will manifest the same life. When the woman finds herself in difficulties, she weeps, she becomes sad, while the man looks at this a little sarcastically and says, oh, a woman's heart. But tomorrow, when they beat him down on the battlefront, you see his tears coming down. Consequently, a person must employ all the conditions in life, and these conditions are innumerable, and we must understand them. We don't have to understand only the good mood we have. The good mood you have is not yours yet. The life your father gave you is not your life. The life your mother gave you is not your life. You need to have something awakened in your mind to know that you have gained something. I ask those who have lived for 30, 40, 50 years, what essential thing have you learned? The woman says, I have come here on earth as a young woman. I must marry. Marriage itself is something essential, but marrying, uniting, cannot take place on earth. Here on earth, only a preface to marriage is made, while marriage takes place in the spiritual world. When I talk to you about marriage, you say, we know about marriage, then children need to be born. Consequently, heavenly life consists in giving birth without suffering. Both men and women give birth there. But this birth is not like that on earth. There's a big difference. If you go to the lower life, how does birth take place there? The cells divide. They split into two parts. They get two more, then two more. And we call this reproduction. Consequently, if you gather together with another being who is born through division of the cells, While you are born in a different way, you'll ask them, "How are you born?" "Well, by splitting." "But how is that possible?" So, if you enter the spiritual life and want to give birth the same way you understand, they will kick you out, and they won't let you go there for 10,000 years. You will defile heaven with your very thought. If you project this thought into the spiritual world, how a woman gives birth, how she conceives, you will defile heaven, and they will not let you go there for 10,000 years. Consequently, our life on earth is a mockery. It doesn't have that lofty, noble feeling of entering into the position of a woman when she gives birth, but we say, "She is a cow, let her give birth to calves. She is a sheep, let her give birth to lambs." And when the lambs are born, you say, "We know what to do with these lambs." This is how the wolf grasps these things. In ancient times, there was a culture between the sheep and the wolves. They used to graze together, eating grass, and they talked in a brotherly way. However, one day a teacher of the wolves came and said, "The wolves will not live on grass alone, but also on all the meat from the sheep." They promoted the new teaching of this teacher, and the wolves began eating sheep. And from then on, the blood of the sheep was sold. Now some teacher comes to you and says, "You can also live off meat." I take this as a symbol. The brotherhood and friendship between the sheep and the wolves disappeared when that teacher declared that one can live not only on grass, but also on flesh. The wolf has been eating meat ever since, but also grazes on grass from time to time when there is no meat. Now the minds of modern people are as distorted as the mind of the wolf. Ask the most righteous man, "Wherein lies the righteousness of Christ's teaching?" He will tell you that Christ came to save the world. Another person will tell you that Christ came to teach people to love each other. Well, where do people attempt this on earth? Where is that school where Christ's teaching is applied in its fullness? Enter the house of the most righteous Christian. He will look at you. He'll lock his house. He'll lock his cash box, his food. He will invite you as a guest, but all his cash boxes are closed. If you ask for 2,000 or 3,000 leva from him, he will tell you, "You've gone too far. Go ask for this money from elsewhere." And this is the teaching of the world. According to the teaching of the world, every person must work. According to the teaching of the world, the weak person must work for the strong person. According to the teaching of the world, the strong one must make use of the meat from the weak one. According to the teaching of the world, your daughter must become the concubine of the strong. This is the teaching of the world, and they refer to it as a cultured Christian teaching. I refer to this as a pathological teaching, a misunderstanding of that great divine law that now operates within us. I will give you an example that occurred near the end of the Silver Age of human life, during the age of the Almarites. The last king in that age was Almar. This king instituted a law according to which, when someone became rich, the king would take the surplus of his wealth and lend it to the poor who lacked the resources. When two people came to this king to sue each other, he would proceed like this. The one who had committed the crime would be sentenced. He did this. Whoever committed the crime was sentenced. But before everything, he called him to his house as a guest. And afterwards, he sent him to prison. The prison was lined with nice carpets, good surroundings, and all the prisoners lived like noble dukes. When a righteous man came to him, he exonerated him, but when he went out, he ordered that he be beaten with sticks, and then he was given a few gardens and fields to cultivate and plant. And so the prisons of this king were always filled with such dukes. The king gave them all the pleasures, but he had one rule. Every prisoner was required to throw away the waste that remained in his washpot. Well, what do you think? Did this king act wisely? Yes, he acted very wisely. I ask you now, would you replace the imprisoned life of the Duke with the free life of that righteous man who cultivated gardens and fields, even though he had to endure 10 sticks on his backside? To the one who committed crimes, there was no punishment. There were nice rugs, rich food. He lived a good life. This is a fact. You wonder why the world is like this today. King Almar reigns today, and he has put all the criminals in such prisons. These prisons have both rugs and couches. They have everything. But they have to take their washpot outside by themselves. But to the righteous ones, he says, those of you who live by God, you will have gardens and fields. You will plow, you will sow, and they will give you 10 sticks up your backside. King Almar reigns today, and the people have not understood him. And Scripture says, whoever the Lord loves, he chastens, and whoever he doesn't love, he doesn't chasten. What does the chastening consist of? That singular unit, the stick, shows that everything in the world must be measured by this singular unit, which neither increases nor decreases things. Consequently, every person who reasons with this singular unit will have the most correct understandings about life. If the woman perceives her life as divine, as a being who came from God, if she understands that life doesn't restrict her, that her husband doesn't restrict her, she will calmly endure all misfortunes. The same goes for the man. But once we start thinking that the world is like this or like that, when we start measuring it with the number 2 and not the 1, the singular unit, the misfortunes start increasing. You say, we know this. You don't know it. You haven't attempted to experiment with it. I'm not saying this about all of you. Some have actually made attempts. But others have stopped in their lives, and they say, it's not worth a person's time to live like this, where we lose this and that. We lost our couches. We lost our rugs. We became poor. Well, since you're poor, you are among the righteous. But if you're rich, the king has sent you to that well-furnished prison. The king had 2 books where he wrote down and kept an account of what he took from the rich and what he lent to the poor. The rich people in that country constantly complained about their king, saying he wronged them. But the poor said there was no better king than theirs. But when he took an account of everything, every 50 years the king called his subjects and said, you owe me this much, you owe me that much, and so on. But to the rich, who became impoverished, he said, you gain this much, you gain that much, and so on. Then everything changed. The rich would say, the king gained more for us, while the poor said, the king deceived us. Consequently, you also need to get rid of these illusions. If the king gives you something, he will take it. If he takes it, he will give it back to you. This is a great law that works in nature. Anything that is earned, no one can take it from you. No being in the world can take away the good you earned with honest toil and sweat on your face. No one can take it away from you. And if you lose it yourself, do not be afraid. This good, whenever it might be, will come back to you. I don't have the time to explain to you the inner secrets of life, because you will learn them yourselves when you study the occult science more deeply. All of you are listening to me, and some of you don't understand one thing, others don't understand another thing. When I speak to you, some of you say, why doesn't he capture this subject matter from a higher, more encompassing vantage point? Others, however, say, why doesn't he take the subject matter down into greater detail? I strive to be understood at least 25%. I can't make things any clearer than that. I say, you have to experience things because you have all the abilities, all the senses. You have all the conditions. Everything is hidden within you. Your life is one of the greatest blessings God has given you. I will assert a fact. Currently, the worst kind of life, the life of the worst sinner, has conditions that are thousands of times better for developing than that of an angel. What will you say now? If an angel wants to pass into a more elevated hierarchy of development, he has to come down on earth. He needs to pass through all the sufferings of man. The angel resembles a tree that can only become thicker, but it can't grow upwards. You say, we should be angels. Consequently, the angels are craving to have the ability to experience human life. They would trade their own lives for yours in order to experience your greatest sufferings. But the divine law doesn't allow them to do so. The greatest privilege for an angel is to be allowed to incarnate. A new realm of existence will open up for that angel. Do not think that if you don't incarnate, you will be able to understand life. You cannot understand an angelic life until you pass through it. And the opposite is true. The lowest life of angels is 100 times higher than the highest life here on earth. This is in its intensity. The people here on earth are still like plants. In order for an angel to come here on earth and be in contact with you, he has to prod you with his needles for a long time, like a plant, until he moves your brain. To the angel, you appear as a first-class dunce. You have fallen asleep, and you are asking, why are you prodding us? He pushes and prods you to show you that there is a being from a higher culture with whom you must come into contact. So, the woman who remains on earth is you, and the one who is taken is the angel, the angelic life. The righteous goes to the righteous. Hence, when we say we must turn to God, this idea runs through the whole culture. Two lives go on simultaneously in the human soul. This can be verified everywhere. The roots represent one kind of life. The branches represent another. The higher one is taken away and the lower one remains. One of the women is taken while the other one remains. And when the development has reached to a certain degree that these two lives are reconciled, then this whole thing is dug up and planted in another place. We must have this correct understanding of life. Spiritual life and religious life is for young people, not old people. All you old people need to pick up your hats and not listen to me. We will send you over there in prison with furnished rooms with nice sofas and carpets. There you will have food and drink. And we will send the young people to the field, and we will hit them with sticks on the backside 10 times. Once they hit you with sticks 10 times, you should know that you are among the chosen. The first thing is to see whether you have some bruising on your backside. If you have some bruising, you are from the new culture. If you don't have any bruising, you are from the old culture, from those who still remained, and nothing will remain of them or you. I embrace those with bruised backsides, or in other words, I embrace all those who have heroically endured all suffering. What I am telling you can be established with scientific experiments. Do not think that the life you have is worth nothing. This is a great delusion. Your life is a great treasure. It's delusional when that philosopher came to the wolves and said, you can live not only on grass but also on the meat. He says to people, you need not live only through hard work and labor, but you will also live on money. Where do you get money from? Today, money is the meat that causes the greatest suffering to people. Many people have lost their minds because of money. Some people go crazy when their money is taken away. and Christians are told that they are heroes. The one who can live only on grass, the one who can live without money, he is a hero. But you will say to me, how is it possible to live without money? I'm not talking about your system under present conditions. As long as man is on earth to live, he will have some power, some abilities, some gifts, for which rich people will need him. If your muscles are strong, the rich man who lives on couches will call you to build him a prison. If you are not capable, no one will call you. I call rich people incapable. Capable people are those who work in the field, in the gardens. So the incapable, noble people are those who live on couches. This is not a reproach. I am not saying that when you go to your homes now, you should throw away your carpet, your couches, because you don't have this kind of courage. But I am saying, keep your carpets, keep your couches. On the day when you are hit with 10 sticks, cross over and go to the field. But until then, stay in prison. When they call you over so they can hit you 10 times with sticks and send you to the field, you are righteous. If you are sinful, they will feed you and put you in a well-furnished room with nice carpets and sofas. This is how Almar reasons. This person seemed courageous and fearless when he committed the crime, and for those who broke the law, for their fearlessness, he gave them a feast and put them in prison with carpets and couches. But regarding the righteous, who are cowardly, he commanded that they be struck with 10 sticks to make them fearless. Someone says, I'm an honest man. Yes, because you are afraid of sticks. So this law holds true in the world. When we come to the world, we must work for the good and avoid evil, not out of fear, but to understand the law that these two worlds are irreconcilable. You will use these lives. You will use the lower life for the roots of your life, and the higher life for the flowers and fruits of your life. You must therefore reconcile these two lives as they manifest. Yet you say, this life needs to be different. Given your current understandings, the kingdom of God cannot come. One person has one understanding, another person has a different understanding. Even religious people who think they are so advanced in their development have a lot of contradiction amongst themselves. For instance, there are so many opinions on salvation. There are so many interpretations on the kingdom of God that even now they haven't figured out what it is. And this is why Christ needs to come on earth to tell his disciples, to tell his followers what his teaching consists of, because everything he said is not written down, but only a microscopic part of it is collected. Hence we need to enter into nature to study everything in it. Yesterday I was with some friends in the garden under the trees, and I said to them, a few years ago in 1911, it was as damp as it is now. I read this from above by looking at the tree. I said to them, what I said to you, you must not say to others, for in the future they will also know when the year was damp. But now, we all expect someone to come from heaven to give us the knowledge right away without making any effort. No, you need to tighten up your mind, to work hard. Your heart needs to work. Your will needs to work day and night so you don't sit around worrying. Intense, noble work is required from the mind. When a false thought enters the mind, when a false feeling enters the heart, throw them out. When a false thought is born, a false desire or action, according to this occult science, we can say, as we read the information on this tree, this false thought appeared this many years ago, and now we are experiencing it. And now Christ says, one of these women is taken while the other one remains. So, every life that is in harmony with God is taken, and every life that is not in harmony with God is left. Consequently, if your mind is in harmony, if your heart is in harmony, it is taken. Prove it to us, you say. There is no proof in the divine world. Come, see and try. Everything is experimental, and when you make 99 successful attempts, everything is correct. Over there, everything is tried, not the way it is here on earth. And so, Christ is warning his listeners by telling them, beware of the life of Lot's wife. I notice that some of you who listen to me say, we should return back to the old days. Well, what does the old teaching consist of? I would like you to describe it. History described it. Visit the slaughterhouses, the battlefields, visit the chemical laboratories. Everywhere you'll see what the present life is like, what people are preparing for. Now people are preparing to wipe each other out. Religious people wipe out other religious people. Scholarly people wipe out other scholarly people. Women wipe out women. Men wipe out men. Why? The men wipe each other out for women. The women wipe each other out for men. Rich people fight each other. Impoverished people fight each other. Everyone is in a state of war. And then they say, it was written this way by the Lord. This is what the Lord said. And they call this Christ's teaching? No. These are the experiences of the old culture. This is the leftover residue of the old culture. What we experience, what we sense weighing over us, this is the karma of all of mankind. This is a debt we're paying off. All of us will be affected. Each person will bear something from this karma. Whoever is taken up will be freed. He will do away with this karma. But the woman who remains shows that she has not yet done away with her karma. And so, the present life requires courage and an intelligent use of those conditions in which we live. Do not say, I'm incapable, but use the gifts and powers you have. You haven't used even 1/100th of a part of your gifts. When you meet some person, you don't value him for his inner qualities, but you value him for the following: whether he's tall, whether he's handsome, whether he's well-dressed, whether he has a high social status, whether he's rich, and so on. If he happens to be tattered, even if he's a saint, you say, he's poor. It's not worth your time associating with a poor man. He's a mischievous person. This is also how the husband values his wife, and the wife does the same with her husband. It's also how the mother values her children, and the children do the same with their mother and father. When the father is rich, learned, the daughters and sons value him. But when he's poor and simple, they don't want to know him. And they call these Christians. They're trying to convince us that the real power resides in the external life. No. The divine life is hidden within us. And that's where the power is. The power that creates noble feelings. The power that throws light on your path. This is something real. It's what we experience. And it's about time we all embark on this path and go inward. Someone says, give me your hand. Well, good. We give our hand like soldiers. We go to the battlefield. We fight. But when we return, some receive something, others receive nothing. One person returns without an eye, another person with a broken leg. Hey, they say, it's all for the fatherland. No, you don't give your hand like this. To give your hand means for two wills to unite, for two minds to unite, to work for ennobling a man in all areas of science, and not to quote verses and say, this is what science says, this is what religion says. There is only one divine science in the world. There is no religion in the divine world. If you enter the divine world and talk about religion, you will be laughed at. There are no temples, no priests, no such holy garments that priests wear, no services. So what is there? There are other things that you haven't dreamed of. If I were to say what there is, I would say in Paul's language, it has neither crossed your mind nor your heart what could possibly be in this world. When did religion come? During the fall of man. When man fell, he began to establish churches. He started choosing bishops and priests, and he said, I will walk along his footsteps. And so, instead of looking toward God, he looked toward the priests and bishops. Well, you created them and said that God will speak through them. You are fooling yourselves. The Lord doesn't speak through priests, clergymen, and bishops. The Lord doesn't rule through paid judges and ministers. In the divine world, not even one of these services requires any kind of reward, for they are performed out of love. How could anyone compare the divine world with the earthly one? You will say, we wonder what clothes we will wear in heaven. Will my husband wear a tailcoat, a top hat, gloves, and other things? This is ridiculous. When they ask what the religious life is like, sometimes I also describe how this life is. They ask me, did the clairvoyants describe these things correctly? They're correct. That's what they saw. That's what they wrote. But is it so? According to that clairvoyant, it is so. According to me, it's not so. Consequently, the spiritual and divine life is something you have to check for yourselves. Or at least, your mind must be discerning. So when they give you a formula, a symbol, you should be able to guess it correctly. I ask, why do animals walk horizontally? Why are trees planted with their heads upside down, whereas you walk with your heads up? How is this so? According to the law of Earth's gravity, all bodies strive downwards. So why is your head, which is so heavy, not downwards, but upwards? And then, if you look at man, you will see that his head in the spiritual world rotates, the way a pendulum does. While it rotates, you continue to live. Once it ceases, you faint. You stop living. In the spiritual world, you represent a wheel which, while it moves correctly, you walk correctly. But once it stops moving, you fall. And so, your life up there in the other world is only a wheel, but you imagine that you're something much more, that you can do a lot. You will say, hey, this person is a divine man. Yes, but have you seen what the divine person really is? If that were the case, then even the cows and the tigers and the lions would think that the divine is like them when they reason. The divine can't compare to the current man. Don't be fooled. You say, man was created in God's image and likeness. This man has undergone 3 transformations. First, he was made in the image and likeness of God. Then he was made out of clay. And finally, the woman was made out of a curved rib. And when they became naked, God made them skins out of beasts so they could dress themselves. And now this man, who is dressed with the skin of a beast, says, I am made in the image and likeness of God. It's ridiculous to think this way. You must transform man 2 more times. Then I will give you the following explanation from geometry. If I tell you 2 to the first power, 2 to the second power, 2 to the third power, 2 to the fourth power, and I ask you, which of these numbers do you understand? 2 to the first, 2 to the second, 2 to the third, or 2 to the fourth?
If you understand 2 to the first power, it means the man and woman who believe in one straight line walk like soldiers. If they say 2 to the second power, it means they move in 2 dimensions, in a square, in a larger plane. If they say 2 to the third power, it means they move in a cube, where it has length, width, and height. And 2 to the fourth power shows that life expands even more. How would one keep going when we say 2 to the fourth power? Here is a place where human wit can't reach. Then I need to tell you to close your present eyes so I can show you where to go. When you close your present eyes, you will move in that direction, in the direction of 2 to the fourth. But while your eyes are open, you'll move only in 3 directions. And when this is expressed in scientific form, it means to concentrate your consciousness within. What does it mean to concentrate your consciousness? It means to enter a vast world where matter has another form, beings have another form, plants have another form. Consequently, the fourth direction is decided like this. You'll close your eyes, you'll enter the fourth power. But you say, "Hey, closing my eyes seems like something dangerous." Until you're in the first power, until you're in the second power, until you're in the third power, you can stay with your eyes open. But to the person who has already been in all 3 directions, I say, now you close your eyes in the fourth power. Go up. And so, you need a correct understanding. Don't fool yourselves into thinking that religion or spiritual life is just a pleasant mood. It contains thoughts. But in spiritual life, there are reasons why this life is like this and not any other way. In the very existence of life, we can't go any other way. This is how the world is created now. No one is in the condition to change life. It will change by itself because our Earth, the whole universe is changing, and in the next thousands and thousands of years, we will change into new matter, and then new forms will appear on Earth. We are ascending to that moment. Some ascend, others remain below. I say that those who ascend are resurrected, while others remain in their graves, that is, they remain to repeat the old culture in a new way. Those people who remain behind in this evolution will be demons for the animals and plants, and then they'll torment them. There was a time when humans were angels, and some of them failed their test. They fell down, and today they are tormenting us. Now you'll ask yourself, why did it have to be this way? It's none of your business. If you want to solve this issue, I ask you, why are you eating? We would be able to solve this issue, this mystery, if you gave up eating. Can you give up eating? You can't. Can you give up thinking? You can't. Can you give up feeling? You can't. The evil in the world is a necessity in the development of the existence of life. It's something good. Without this necessity, you would have been in that demon's place. Now there are others who torment you. Otherwise, you would be in their place. Consequently, be thankful that there is someone to take your place. Be thankful that when they torment you with this, they save you from falling into these traps. An evil spirit comes, robs you of your wealth. The invisible world allows it because it knows that this wealth will be used to ruin your life. God has given you health, but you will use this health to harm your loved ones by committing some kind of crime. So God sends this bad spirit to take away your health, and you must thank him. These bad spirits indirectly do you a favor without you being aware of it. If they were aware of it, they wouldn't be doing this mischief. But then that's why you'd be suffering even more. One day, when you rise up in life, you will not remain like a frog making noise. You will not remain in the dark thinking about what this committee will say about food. This situation will change. Just like that young girl who is getting ready to be a bride. At first, she keeps thinking about her wreath, dreaming of this and that. And when she gets married, she says, I understand this life. I don't want to get married anymore. Yes, when she grows old, who would want to marry her? Some granny says, Son, I lived long enough. I don't want to live in this world anymore. I say, Well, what if you're a young woman? Oh, if I'm a young woman? She's acting pious now. She says about some young woman, That young one, look at her. Her snot is still running down. Well, what were you like when you were young? Hey, I was foolish. Well, what if you're young now? I suppose I would be the same. Then that's jealousy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason for this granny to restrict young people from loving each other. Love is a good impulse. There might be crooked attempts when it comes to love. Consequently, we have to understand why this love turned out the way it is, and not as we want it. Christ says, One is taken while the other one remains. When one of them is taken, when she passes from one life into the next, you begin conquering your difficulties in this life. And this shows that one of the women who is digested down in the stomach is now climbing up in the lungs, reaching the spiritual life, and she's starting to work. So, religious and spiritual people must be wise, not stupid people. Not people who fantasize, but people who deal with reality, with the visible, with the tangible, and they must know what is real and what is not real. When I speak of spirits, I have a different concept of spirits. When I speak of angels, I have a different concept from what you understand. When I read descriptions about the angels and the spiritual world, this description is funny. There is something similar, but it is internal. It's in that internal principle, in which there is no distortion at all. When you speak of love, and you understand the union of man and woman, this is not love, this is work. This is for the continuation of the species. If the mother works, this is human selfishness, so she can have something in her old age. Love is the most sublime feeling that exists in the world. It is neither the feeling of the man, nor the feeling of the woman, nor the feeling of the mother. Now you will try all these kinds of love, and when you have tried all the forms of love, then one of these women of yours will be taken, and you will say, I was a servant once, and now I see, now I understand what love is. This is why Paul says, For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away with. We will experience love as God manifests it in us, and this love will give us a newer impulse in the pursuit of science in all its branches, where everything will eventually cohere together. I want young people to study. Not to say that we religious people don't need science. Don't deceive yourselves. There is no man more dangerous than a religious man without science. The religious man must have all the knowledge that mankind has attained. You will say, When we go to heaven, we will study. Over there, it's a different matter. All of you must have knowledge. I'm not talking about the kind of knowledge where you have to be like reference books, where you have to have a lot of collected knowledge. That is what I call a loaded camel. You must have knowledge, but you must understand the laws. You must understand why the world was created this way, and why these sciences appeared. Everything is useful. When your objective mind works, it will create your eyebrows. Your reason will create your forehead. The creative mind will create something else. Hence, if you don't develop properly, your head will be deformed. Some places will have bulges, others will be flattened. Man must strive for everything. He must have variety. Only then will the organism develop properly and symmetrically. Introduce variety into your life, and your life will become good. Put one woman in the mill. 2 women are not needed there. People are strange when they ask you what your teaching is. There aren't 2 teachings. There is one teaching in the world. You will say this: we want to be hard-working, honest disciples in the great divine school in the world, to justify all the expenses our brothers and sisters have incurred on our behalf. We want to justify all the trust that is put in us, and to make use of everything in the world. You don't need to enter into prisons with carpets and couches, but you need to study every spring, every flower, all the conditions in nature, and to understand why they were created that way. If your eyes are blue, why is this so? If they're black, why is this so? Why is your nose wide? Your eyes were black or blue from thousands of years ago. Your eyes are either blue or black. This indicates the epoch in your life, the conditions in which you lived. Now you say, she has little blue eyes. No, you have to know what your wife's little blue eyes mean, and then you'll understand how your wife will act in regard to you. People with blue eyes are cold people. They don't have a lot of imagination. There aren't a lot of feelings. People with blue eyes are more of the type who have passive faith. And what are the people with black eyes like? I will explain in occult law. Take, for instance, the white and blue color. They are both passive colors. The color black is an emblem of evil, whereas the white signifies the good. How do they differ? The black color absorbs everything into itself, whereas the white color throws everything out. Why does the black absorb? Since it struggles with the white color, the black color wants to absorb all the energy of the white color so it can control it. The white color, which is also in a struggle with the black, penetrates it. The white color is in the position of those little frogs that enter the crocodile's stomach through the mouth, and when they get there, they start nibbling at it, thereby making a hole. Then water rushes into his stomach, and within 20 minutes, the crocodile turns over with his belly up. So the black color, having absorbed all the rays of the white color, destroys itself and therefore becomes the basis for culture. This is why black people are the culture of the world. The feelings begin with them. People don't like them, but without them, there is no culture. Without black soil, wheat doesn't grow. White men and white women don't yield any wheat. Black people and black women give birth to good wheat. You say, he's a bad man, a black man. I say, he's black, but he gives birth to wheat. You say, he's white. Yes, white, but he doesn't give birth to wheat. You will put the white woman and the black woman. You will mix them, and then a lot of fruit will come out. This is the law in nature. You will make use of everything. Of these 2 women, one is white, the other is black. The white one must enter into the black one. This higher spiritual life must enter within. When a person dies, he says, I'm finished with the 3 dimensions. I'm now starting with the 4th. When you close your eyes, then you will enter the 4th dimension. But many people, even when they close their eyes, still think about this world. No, you will forget this world. You will free yourself from all the worries and say, I am starting a new life without worries. Then what will come out of you? Wheat will come out. When you pass into the 4th dimension, you will turn into wheat. All the present people will become wheat. Everyone will try them, but you will all be the carriers, the saviors of the world. This is why the grains of wheat are considered angels and advanced spirits. When I take the grain of wheat, I look at it for a long time and I say to myself, when you enter into these people, They will understand what you are. Be courageous and determined in your lives. Know that the world was created for you so you can learn, and not for creating bad thoughts and distorting your lives. Lecture held on the 12th of June, 1921.